Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, more commonly known as the EEOC, and the final rule under Section 501 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Affirmative Action for Individuals with Disabilities in Federal Employment, issued on January 3, 2017. These changes clarify the obligations placed on the federal government to be a model employer for people with disabilities. The final rule does several things. First, it clarifies affirmative action obligations imposed on federal employers by Section 501 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Second, it codifies various obligations placed on the federal agencies by management directives and executive orders. Third, it adds two substantive affirmative action requirements. Let's take a few minutes to discuss some 501 fast facts.
The federal government has had a long history of ensuring equal employment opportunity for people with disabilities. Today, there are more people with disabilities, including people with targeted disabilities, working in the federal government than ever before. While progress has been made over the last 4 decades, people with disabilities remain disproportionately represented in lower-level positions. EEOC found that federal employees with disabilities are employed in positions that are at least 2 grade levels below their peers without disabilities. The EEOC's updated regulation puts policy into practice by ensuring federal agencies have an affirmative action plan to provide adequate hiring, placement, and advancement opportunities for individuals with disabilities at all levels of employment.
The rule sets out 8 requirements for affirmative action plans. Each agency should have a plan to provide adequate hiring, placement, and advancement opportunities for individuals with disabilities at all levels of federal employment. This means
agencies must have targeted recruitment programs and establish contacts with organizations that specialize in providing assistance to individuals with disabilities. Agencies must have sufficient staff to handle any disability-related issues that arise during the applications and selection processes. Such staff must receive sufficient training, support, and other resources to carry out these tasks. Agencies must ensure current employees with disabilities have sufficient opportunities for advancement and have opportunities to enroll in relevant training.
all in all, the rule gives agencies flexibility in terms of implementing these requirements. What matters most are the results of these efforts. In regards to anti-harassment, 501 requires
agencies must state specifically in their anti-harassment policy that harassment based on disability is prohibited. In its training materials, agencies must provide examples of the type of conduct that would constitute disability-based harassment.
For reasonable accommodation, the new rule means
agencies must adopt comprehensive, reasonable accommodation procedures, post the procedures on their public website, and make the procedures available to all applicants and employees in written and accessible formats. Agencies must provide a job applicant or employee who is denied a reasonable accommodation with a written notice at the time of denial and an accessible format when requested. Agencies must inform decision makers for accommodation requests that all available agency resources are considered when determining whether an accommodation is too expensive, and explain to decision makers how to access the resources.
For more information on Personal Assistance Services, PAS, please check out the link on the screen.
Agencies must provide an employee with personal assistance services needed, in addition to professional services required as an accommodation during work hours and job-related travel.
The rule sets out the following workforce representation goals.
12% of employees at the GS-11 level or equivalent and above, including SES, are people with disabilities. 12% of employees at the GS-10 level or equivalent and below are people with disabilities. 2% of employees at the GS-11 level or equivalent and above, including SES, are people with targeted disabilities. And 2% of employees at the GS-10 level or equivalent and below are people with targeted disabilities.
Agencies must take specific steps that are reasonably designated to gradually increase the number of persons with disabilities or targeted disabilities until it meets the goals.
Agencies must keep records that it may use to determine whether it is complying with requirements imposed under Section 501 and make such records available to EEOC upon request. So what's next?
Make necessary changes to your agency policy, staff, and other aspects of operations by January 3rd, 2018. Submit 501 compliant affirmative action plans to EEOC annually for review. For current updates on the federal sector, EEO, follow us on Twitter and like us on our Facebook page, EEOC, Office of Federal Operations. And thank you for your time.